Joe Biden has every excuse in the book as to why the economy is doing so miserably, as to why gas prices are so high. And in one of his latest attacks, he shamed gas station owners as if they're the reason prices are so high. Well, gas stations are typically run by small businesses. So Joe Biden, refusing to take responsibility for his own actions, is condemning small businesses in this country. Now, I'm not going to blame Joe Biden for everything going wrong in the world. That would be stupid and insane. I know a lot of people really want that. I know there's also an equal amount of people who want to say he's done nothing wrong. Accept responsibility for your vote. Joe Biden is gutting this country. Because the latest news, I can't believe I'm reading this headline. Biden administration exporting oil from U.S. strategic reserves to Europe and Asia. Are you kidding me? At a time when regular people in this country can't afford gas, when you are getting prominent Democrats saying, just buy an electric car. What's the problem? Don't have $60,000? Well, maybe you should have considered that before you were poor. Joe Biden is exporting our strategic reserves to Europe and Asia, probably because of Ukraine and Russia, because our allies in Europe are suffering due to the war. But should the United States be giving up its strategic reserves when our prices are as high as they are? Now, listen, Joe Biden has released millions of barrels from our strategic reserves. It's done almost nothing to curb the cost of gasoline. Why still would you give up our emergency reserves? This is the epitome of insanity. You know what? I think regular people in this country get it by now. You must stop listening to the zealous, psychotic Democrat activists who are going to defend this. This is beyond reproach. You can come out and say everything you want. You can say Vladimir Putin's invasion of Ukraine is causing economic supply chain crunches. You can say it's damaging the value of the dollar. You can say Saudi Arabia is not making enough oil. You can say the oil companies have record profits. All of those things. Fine. And then I ask you, why is Biden exporting our emergency reserves? It's about time you wake up to the fact that this country is being gutted. Regular people are calling it out, and that's why Biden's approval rating is in the gutter. And this is why I think Joe Biden's not going to be running for re-election. There is no way you run this man in 2024 and he beats Trump or DeSantis. And then what's going to stop Trump or DeSantis? I don't know. Maybe what they'll do is they'll levy criminal charges against Donald Trump. But then you get DeSantis. What are they going to do to stop DeSantis from running? No way. You run Joe Biden after this. This is the kick in the balls to the American people. This is the slap in the face. Prices are going up. Food prices are going up. We're looking at a deficit in military recruitment. We're looking at 40,000 National Guards, servicemen and women who may be discharged. It is a collapse. And we're watching it in real time. But I suppose too many people think a collapse needs to occur overnight. No, it's in free fall right now. I can't believe this is the headline. If the Biden administration indefinitely continues releasing oil from the SPR at its current rate, the entire supply could be gone by early November 2023. I certainly hope that is not the case. I certainly hope Biden stops. But I have to wonder, with everything we're seeing now, with the lockdowns, with the policies, with the narrative from the establishment press, is this all on purpose? How is it that things could be getting so bad in this country and the Democrats and Joe Biden would continue to enact policies that damage and destroy us? I'll tell you this. There are many people on the left saying Joe Biden doesn't control gas prices. Forbes runs an article saying, yeah, Joe Biden can change gas prices. He can lower it right now. Joe Biden says, we're going to enact policies to lower these gas prices. Why didn't you do it before? Let's read this story from timcast.com. Before we do, head over to timcast.com, become a member to help support our work. We've got a lot of stuff in the works, new shows coming your way. We're going to be launching Tales from the Inverted World as a timcast.com exclusive. It's too good of a show. And in order to keep it running, it's going to have to go behind the paywall. And this is because we want to make this something more. We want to produce content. We want to produce culture. We want to change the world. And we want to produce news and we want to cover stories in the best way possible. True facts, challenging the lies, the manipulations in the mainstream press. So please become a member so we can continue this great work. But don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends. Here's the story from timcast.com. As Americans struggle with record high gasoline and diesel prices, the Biden administration is tapping the U.S. strategic reserves and sending oil overseas. More than 5 million barrels of oil were exported to Europe and Asia last month, as the average price for gas across the nation reached $5 for the first time in history. The Strategic Petroleum Reserve is a complex of 4 sites with deep underground storage caverns created in salt domes along the Texas and Louisiana Gulf coasts. It is managed by the U.S. DoE. It was created in 1975 to offset any future disruptions of the oil supply. It was designed for emergency use, such as natural disasters and events like the OPEC oil embargo against the U.S., not for offsetting high prices due to policy decisions or market conditions. In March, President Biden ordered the release of 1 million barrels per day from the SPR through the month of October. As of July 6, total inventory is only at about 492 million barrels. The maximum total withdrawal capability is 4.4 million barrels today. If that amount of oil were released, based on current inventory, it would take only 111 days to deplete the entire supply of U.S. oil. A former DOE official has gone on record calling the release of the nation's emergency oil reserves illegal. Here's the core part of the story. Biden sent 5 million barrels of U.S. oil to Europe, Asia, despite soaring gas prices, the Washington Times reporting. The exports are part of a broader and historic release of 1 million barrels per day. The U.S. has allowed more than 5 million barrels of oil from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve to be exported to Europe and Asia, a move that contradicts President Biden's statements about trying to bring down the cost of soaring prices at the pump. It is absolutely insane. News of the emergency reserves release comes just a week after Energy Secretary Jennifer Granholm met with oil and gas executives in a closed-door meeting to discuss ways to reduce energy costs. I'm just going to say it right now. I do not believe they have any intention of lowering prices. We've heard the narrative. We've heard the rhetoric. They want high gas prices specifically to stop climate change. Joe Biden said as he campaigned, he will get us off fossil fuels. So why would you assume this is anything other than gutting the American reserves, cranking up the prices so that regular people stop driving cars? Was it Buttigieg, I think? There was a senator. They were just like, just get an electric car. What's the problem? You got $40,000 sitting around for a Hyundai Ioniq, right? You don't? Oh, they're sold out anyway? What about a Tesla? You can get a used Tesla for on the same price. Oh, they're sold out too? Sorry. Maybe you shouldn't be driving. Take a look at this from the National Review. Biden's shameful gas station attack. It's hard to know where the economic illiteracy ends and the shameless demagoguery begins. Over the past holiday weekend, the president slammed gas stations for the purported sin of not passing along declining oil prices to motorists. Biden took to Twitter to urge the companies running gas stations and setting prices at the pump to bring down the price you are charging at the pump to reflect the cost you are paying for the product. Yes, sir. Whatever you say, Mr. President. The U.S. Oil and Gas Association mockingly recommended that the intern who posted the tweet should sign up for Econ 101. But it's worse than that. Biden has hit the gas stations before on the same grounds. It's hard to know where the economic illiteracy ends and the shameless demagoguery begins. Regardless, it's another indication that the president's approach to inflation is to cast about for scapegoats and villains, no matter how implausible. So-called jawboning or stern rhetoric directed at industries to get them to bend to the presidential will is nothing new. The most famous example is from John F. Kennedy, who blasted U.S. Steel for raising prices in 1962. Biden, by contrast, is going after the proverbial Liberty gas station and Unimart down on Route 134, started by an immigrant couple hoping to send their children to college for the first time. These small-time entrepreneurs have done nothing wrong, except remain in business at a time when the president's anti-oil and gas policy has backfired spectacularly. Indeed, when Biden says gas stations are set prices, he's technically correct in the sense that they post the prices on their iconic signs down to the 10th of a cent. They aren't doing it arbitrarily, though. They all know that if they set a price not justified by broader market forces, customers will simply drive down the street to a more reasonably priced station. More importantly, there's regulations. More importantly, they know that there's gas stations all over the place, as they pointed out. They can go wherever they want. Gas stations don't make money, for the most part, off gas. They support themselves through their mini-marts by selling sodas and chips and hot dogs, by having you come in to buy snacks. Joe Biden doesn't know what he's talking about, or maybe he does. And maybe the intention is to gut the system. Well, I'm proud to say it seems like regular people, to a certain degree, are at least waking up. From timcast.com, nearly 9 in 10 Americans say the country is on the wrong track. According to Monmouth University, who conducted the poll, which was released on Tuesday, this marks an all-time low for this question going back to 2013. Biden's overall job rating continues to trend downward. Currently, just 36% approve of the job he is doing, while 58% disapprove. Over at Real Clear Politics, we can see that in aggregate, Joe Biden's approval rating is 38.4%. You think they're going to run this man for 2024? Sorry, I think you would be insane. Anyone who thinks this guy can run is wrong, and anyone who thinks he should try is insane. This man, Joe Biden, will lose handily. But maybe that's the intent. I don't know. Maybe he's their sacrificial lamb. I mean, I've said it before. Joe Biden ran knowing that people hated Trump. The Democrats thought they could win off of Obama nostalgia. Joe Biden would win off that alone. And then when everything fails and he guts the system, here's the plan. They'll blame him for it. Here's what I'm seeing. Joe Biden is such an awful president. I would not be surprised if Hillary Clinton actually runs. And she says, you dealt with Trump, then you dealt with Biden. I'm here to save you. And then that really awful taste of vomit in your mouth, if you throw up a little bit, a lot of people might be like, I will take whatever I can get. But I don't think Hillary can beat Trump anyway. That may be what they're hoping, but I don't see it. I think everybody knows Joe Biden is broken. From the Daily Mail. Anonymous Democrat calls Biden rudderless, aimless, and hopeless in damning report that compares the gas tax holiday plan to throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing what sticks. Yep. An unnamed Democrat lawmaker criticized the Biden administration as rudderless, aimless, and hopeless in yet another damning report of turmoil between the U.S. president and his party on Tuesday. More than 20 Democrats working across Congress and the White House shared private concerns with CNN regarding President Joe Biden's ability to respond to back-to-back crises that have plagued the country for much of his term, and whether he's an effective leader of those behind him working to fix it. Even the president's allies seem to be frustrated with the lack of action, as his measures to curb high gas prices and address the baby formula shortage fail to solve either problem. One such example is Biden's recent demand for Congress to give Americans a 3-month relief from the federal gas tax in a bid to ease their pain with sky-high prices at the pump. It had the appearance of throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing what sticks, an official said. The report also suggests Biden is taking out that frustration on his aides. The president is described as having a tendency to berate advisors when a situation does not pan out as expected. What did you think was going to happen when a guy who didn't campaign got elected? This country is being ripped to shreds. It also appears to conflict with Biden's day one promise to fire workplace bullies on the spot. Quote, I'm not joking when I say this. If you're ever working with me and I hear you treat another with disrespect, talk down to someone, I promise you I will fire you on the spot, the president said on January 20th last year. Look at these gas prices, man. Another unnamed Democrat lawmaker complained that there was no fight left in Biden amid reports of concern from House reps up for re-election over what effect the president's unpopularity has on their races. Quote, people understand that a lot of this is out of his hands, but what you want to see is the president out there swinging. One aide is quoted as complaining, there's not a frontline office out there that isn't frustrated with the lack of action coming from the White House on inflation. At the very least, the president should get caught trying to bring prices down just about every day. People near the decision-making and policy processes have reportedly also expressed frustration that Biden's infamous inability to settle on decisions is getting in the way of further economic action against China and his promise to ease the burden on federal student loan debt. Okay, I'm just going to say it. What did you think was going to happen? What did you think was going to happen? This is back in June. It's about a month ago. Rising food prices are changing the way we eat and shop. You think regular people don't see this? A near, basically 12 percentage point increase in the cost of food. You think people aren't seeing this? They don't feel it? Joe Biden is done. I think he's done. We have serious problems happening right now in this country. Gas prices, food prices, a sleeping, dim-witted president. And then this. From Fox News, Biden's military recruiting crisis, a demon of its own design. The message is very clear. If you're a patriotic young American, stay clear of the military. Whoa. America's armed forces are facing the worst recruiting crisis since the end of the draft in 1973. The Biden Pentagon is blaming the economy. The reality is far more troubling. It's human nature to avoid suffering and danger, if possible, unless it's for the greater good. Even then, not everyone is cut up to be a cop, firefighter, or service member. We see police retirements soaring and recruiting not keeping up with defund the police mandatory COVID-19 vaccine places like Seattle. While most of Texas finds it easy to fill police academy classes, it's not hard to understand why police are generally honored in Texas, but not in Seattle. Here's the issue. The police are demonized. It's a dangerous job. The military has become woke. They say it's the economy. Is that a joke? When the economy goes bad, people enlist. It's a guaranteed job with a guaranteed salary. They're going to say, the message is very clear if you're a patriotic young American. Stay clear of the military. After all, why put yourself under the command of people who at best are suspicious of you and at worst will demand you attend pronoun re-education camp? I'm just so sick of it, man. How can we expect this country to be anything if we are allowing woke cult members to run the show? So what do? Why didn't Donald Trump do anything about this? Now he had the executive order banning woke trainings. 2 years too late. He should have fired Milley. He should have fired all of these people, but Trump just did not get it. He's old. You didn't know. And now look at our country. Look what's happening. Take a look at this. From the Daily Caller, Senator Blackburn to introduce legislation backing National Guard members set to be fired over COVID vaccine refusal. 40,000 U.S. Army National Guard members are set to be fired for refusing to take the COVID-19 vaccine. This is June 30th. So I don't know exactly where we're at right now, but I don't see these people deciding to just go and get vaccinated. They're going to get discharged. That's where we are. Now, as for the rest of this country, the ones who just keep lining up to defend Democrats, despite the fact that Joe Biden is giving away our oil while our gas prices are through the roof. Take a look at this. From the New York Times. The rise of the far-right Latina. Representative Mayra Flores is one of 3 Republican Latinas vying to transform South Texas politics by shunning moderates and often embracing the extreme. Are you out of your minds? You know what? Fine. So be it. Say it. Say it again. Let everyone hear what you have to say. South Texas is turning Republican. Mayra Flores is an example of that. Let the New York Times call her far right. Let them call everyone far right, you insane people. Fine. I think if anything, this shows truly they've lost the plot. They are the minority and we are winning. The best thing they have to offer when a Republican Latina wins is that she is far right. Incredible. The New York Times says, for years, Texas Republicans tried to win the Hispanic vote using a Bush-era brand of compassionate conservatism. The idea was that a moderate's touch and a softer rhetoric on immigration were key to making inroads with the Hispanic voters, particularly in Democrat strongholds. Such was the Texas of old. The Trump age has given rise to a new brand of Texas Republicans, one of whom is already walking the halls of Congress, the far-right Latina. Representative Mayra Flores became the first Republican to represent the Rio Grande Valley in more than a century, after she won a special election last month and flipped the congressional seat from blue to red. She also became the first Latina Republican ever sent by Texas to Congress. Her abbreviated term lasts only through the end of the year, and she is seen as a long shot to win re-election in a full one. But what is most striking is that Ms. Flores won by shunning moderates, embracing the far right, and wearing her support for Donald Trump on her sleeve. More Marjorie Taylor Greene than Kay Bailey Hutchison. Her campaign slogan, God, Family, Country, was meant to appeal to what she calls the traditional values of her majority Hispanic district in the broader city of Brownsville. She called for President Biden's impeachment. Hear, hear. She tweeted QAnon hashtags, and she called the Democratic Party the greatest threat America faces. In an interview in her still barren office that day, after her swearing-in ceremony, Ms. Flores was asked whether she considered Mr. Biden the legitimately elected president. He's the worst president of the United States. When asked 3 more times whether Mr. Biden had been legitimately elected, she repeated the same non-answer. So, no answer then, huh? 2 other Latina Republicans, Monica De La Cruz in McAllen and Cassie Garcia in Laredo, are also on the ballot in congressional races along the Mexican border. All 3 GOP officials have taken to calling them a triple threat, share right-wing views on immigration, the 2020 election, and abortion, among other issues. The southern border of Texas is porous and broken, and Hispanics who live there are voting Republican. We saw a major swing in 2020. We are seeing a special election victory now. What does the New York Times think they're doing? This is the weirdest thing to me. Here's what I want to show you. Joe Biden's approval rating. I showed you before, but let's say 38.4%. All right, let's talk business. I run a business. I make videos. I want to appeal to the masses. I want everybody to watch my videos, right? Hey, everybody. Everyone hates Joe Biden. Let's talk about how Joe Biden's bad. That's the path, isn't it? Now, to be fair, I've ragged on Joe Biden even when his approval rating was in the high 50s. My position is not predicated upon supporting any kind of politics. It's just either I like what he's doing or I don't. I don't like Joe Biden. But right now, with Joe Biden's approval rating being so low, shouldn't every mainstream comedian, shouldn't every major corporation be against him? It says something, doesn't it? Oreo cookies should be coming out and being like, no, we don't support this stuff. Instead, they come out with all the woke nonsense. Late night comedy hosts should be ragging on Biden, being like, nobody likes him. Instead, they make jokes about Trump. They placate or defend Biden or provide minor criticisms. This is the crazy thing. Here's the point. Late night talk show hosts have no convictions, have no politics. Regular Americans don't like this guy. Why are they defending him? Why aren't they calling out Joe Biden? Why are they instead criticizing Myra Flores? Why are they criticizing her? That to me is the craziest thing. And it says, tribal cultism rules this day. Joe Biden can give away our strategic oil reserves, and they will say it's not his fault what's happening. Joe Biden, they will claim, can lower gas prices with policy, but then claim the high prices aren't his fault. What about his policies that raise gas prices? It's a cult. That's it. I don't like the Q stuff. I don't know much about Myra Flores. Good for her, she won. But I'll tell you the truth. The Southern Texas is going Republican. Why call her far right? If anything, she just believes wrong things. Does that mean far right economically or culturally? No. The New York Times continues. In 2020, the Valley's conservative culture started to exert a greater influence on politics. Mr. Trump flipped rural Zapata County, and narrowed the Democratic margin of victory in the 4 Valley counties and in other border towns. Quote, growing up down there, you always have closeted Republicans, said Mrs. Garcia, former aide to Senator Ted Cruz. Now, the desire to embrace Republicans is really spreading. They feel a genuine sense of belonging. Other pro-Trump Latinas are running for the House seats in Virginia, Florida, and New Mexico, among other places. Republican leaders and strategists say Ms. Flores' win and the candidacies of other right-wing Hispanic women are proof that Latino voters are increasingly shifting to the right, or the left has gone too far left. More than 100 Republican House candidates are Hispanic, a record number according to the National Republican Congressional Committee. Democrats view the situation much differently. Some Democratic leaders dismiss Ms. Flores' victory as a fluke, the product of a low turnout special election in which 28,990 people cast ballots, and a fleeting one. Ms. Flores, who was elected to serve the last 6 months of a retiring Democratic congressman's term, is running in November for a full term. She faces a popular Democratic incumbent who is switching districts, Representative Vicente Gonzalez. Democratic leaders are optimistic that Mr. Gonzalez will defeat Ms. Flores and that Ms. Garcia will lose her race against Rep. Henry Queller, the conservative Democrat who narrowly beat a progressive challenger in a primary runoff. I don't know if that's the case, though. I think it's possible. I talked about it before. Everyone's like, wow, look at the red wave coming. And I'm like, 28,990 people, 29,000 people in a district of 770,000. Sorry, I'm not convinced you're going to see in 2022, in the midterm, what you see in the special election. However, I think a lot of people are switching parties. 1 million Democrats, switched to the Republican Party. I think we may see the same trends in the general, because people are just looking at the Democrats saying, all you do is scream Trump. All you do is scream impeachment. And what does that do for any of us? Nothing. Today, they're concerned about wokeness. They're concerned about what their kids are being taught. They're concerned about things like Drag Queen Story Hour. They're concerned about the southern border and the people running across, even in Mexico. The Mexican citizens are concerned about the immigrants coming from Guatemala and Honduras. Then these woke liberals, the affluent white female liberals, come out and say, we should let everyone come in. And you get people like AOC saying, these are concentration camps. Meanwhile, the people who live there are like, yo, we're not happy with this. We're not happy with the fighting. We're not happy with the cartels. We're not happy with the kids dying. And AOC and these other progressives come out and defend this stuff. So I'm not convinced. Now, I think it's a fair point. We will see what happens, because far be it from me to think I know what the future holds. The Republicans are going to claim they're going to win because they have to. They want people to feel like they're going to win to go out and vote. The Democrats are going to say the exact same thing for the exact same reason. We can't lose. It was a fluke, and we're going to win in November. I don't buy it. When you take a look at all the polls, you can see very, very clearly that there's a red wave coming. Let me tell you about this. From NPR, My Body, My Choice, how vaccine foes co-opted the abortion rallying cry. The craziest thing is apparently there's some poll showing that most people, most of these Democrats, don't want to use the phrase anymore. I don't know exactly. Let me see if it's in here somewhere. This is what's fascinating to me. When you have people not wanting to say my body, my choice anymore, that's because the right, the colloquial cultural right, started using it. They're taking over, whether you agree or disagree. Democrats are saying, I don't want to be associated with that. There were Democrats saying that they were going to keep wearing masks even when they didn't have to because they didn't want people to think they were Republicans. They are in a cult. It's their obsession. Anything to just not be the far right. And that's why the New York Times does this. And that's why they're desperate to smear anyone who challenges the insanity of Joe Biden and the Democrats as far right or right wing. The only thing they have to campaign on is don't be like the evil other. But it's not working anymore. And it's apparent in Joe Biden's approval ratings that most people, a strong majority, are out, like 2/3, are just like, I don't like what this guy is doing. Now, many of these people may not admit it. Maybe these are the silent Trump supporters, the silent Republicans. Modern establishment culture, mainstream celebrity, they're all anti-Republican. So this is why a lot of people don't want to come out and say they're Republicans. But I wonder, the secret Trump vote, they called it. When the polls came out, it was like a 7-point swing. They were all wrong. And boy, did they lose their minds. We weren't wrong. We did a good job. It's not our fault. It's everyone else who's wrong. No, people just wanted to vote Republican. They wanted to vote for Trump. They wanted to vote for something other than your insanity. In 2020, Joe Biden may have won. But if you look at Congress, you can see that there were some districts that were considered safe Democrat that flipped. That's the crazy thing. Safe Democrat districts flipped. What do you think's going to happen now? When Joe Biden has been given 2 years, what do you think's going to happen with regular people when they're like, the Democrats sold me out, they sold out our oil, they are attacking my children, they are attacking my family, they're insulting my family, they're calling us every name in the book. When the red wave hit Congress in 2020, when Democrats lost handily, they maintained the House, to be fair, but they lost many seats. Donald Trump had been president. Yet for some reason, people still voted Republican. What do you think's going to happen to Congress when this country's been given 2 years of a failed, psychotic Joe Biden presidency? I think you're going to see something much more profound. I don't know for sure. I remember in 2018, I thought that the culture war issues would permeate and thus you'd see a major Republican victory. I did not see how anyone would support these psychopaths. But you know what? Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. People voted for 31 Democrats because they said we are not going to play these games. We're going to get in there and vote on real issues. What'd they do? Well, one guy to Staten Island, for instance, impeachment. Jeff Van Drew switched parties and then just won his primary in a landslide. I think you can see it coming. I think you can see it. People in 2018 in the midterms were just thinking to themselves, okay, I'm going to vote Democrat, but I'm going to vote for somebody in the primary who's not woke. And then they got culture war. Now, I don't think people are going to fall for it. I think they're going to look at all these Democrats making all these promises, and they're going to say, enough. And they're going to vote Republican. Be it Latina or otherwise. Republicans are making gains amongst Asians, amongst the black community, amongst Latinos. The Democrats just keep losing. I wonder if we'll see some major landslides. I don't know. But I do know one thing. This story that Biden has been exporting oil from our reserves to Europe and Asia. It's like Biden walked right up to you, smiled, and then spat in your face. He knows people are hurting. What is he doing giving our oil away? I can only assume. It's for war and because they want this country to implode. They're gutting it. Remember that in November. I don't think the Democrats are going to, I don't think the Republicans are going to save you from anything. But this to me is just too insane. Makes my blood boil. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 8 p.m. over at youtube.com/TimCastIRL. Thanks for hanging out. We'll see you all then.